Attention, everybody. Wait a second. Attention, everybody. The views expressed on this show is not necessarily those of, or are not necessarily those of Acts Ministry, Acts Media Group, and or their affiliate and subordinate ministries and or nonprofits. So without any further ado, after weeks of missing this guy, ladies and gentlemen, it's the new gold standard with Tony Hammack.
Good morning, everybody. I hope everybody had a good holiday season. I know that me and my family did. And in a way, it seemed rather short, but I was just telling Steve over here that, you know, I'm kind of excited to get back into the swing of things and stuff. I think 2020 is going to be a good year. My wife keeps trying to think of a way to turn that into a marketing slogan like, you know, 2020 vision and all those kinds of fun things and stuff. So we'll see. Anyway, I had a couple of neat things in store for this morning's show, and I thought I would start off with the stewardship part of it, which is always one of my favorites. And hopefully you will agree. Tell you the truth, I can't remember where we left off before Christmas, but I was kind of looking back through these lessons. This was rather a short group of lessons, and then once we're through with these, we'll kind of move on to the next one and stuff like that. But today's, the devotional starts out with, we were slaves to sin, but Jesus came to set us free. If he wanted to set us free in one area, why would he want us to be slaves in another? Whether you've acquired debt through circumstances beyond your control or through your own mistakes, I believe God would love to see his children living debt-free lives. As stewards of the money that he has entrusted to us, we have a free will. We can choose to give, save, or spend however we like. We can even spend more than we have. The good news is that God will work on our behalf to help us get out of debt. But we have a part to play. It doesn't matter how much God provides. If we spend more money than we have, we will always be in debt. Getting out of debt is not a one-time decision. I wish getting out of debt, losing weight, and exercising were one-time decisions, but they are not. They need to be decided over and over again. Every time you feel tempted to buy something you don't need or eat a dozen Oreos or just feel like sitting on the couch, you have a decision to make. Are you going to do what you should do or what you feel like doing? You probably know what most of us do most of the time, what we feel like doing. That's why we need God's help. Set your intention, then put your trust in him. Your faith, mixed with action, will make all the difference. If you're in debt and want to get out, spend a moment praying for God's help. God, I know you can do all things, and that I can do all things through Christ who gives me strength. I want to get out of debt. I need your help. Lead me by your wisdom as I begin this journey. Help me change my habits and my mindset. Work through me and others so I can eliminate all of my debt. Lead me to a place where I can be in a position to give more to others. For your glory and in Jesus' name, amen. Boy, howdy. Isn't that just hitting a lot of good buttons here, first thing in the new year and so forth. I like the way it kind of tied in the whole New Year's resolutions with the weight loss and then, of course, you know, getting out of debt and so forth. So hopefully you're like me and enjoy those. I guess next week we'll do the last one in this set, and then we'll move on to another one and stuff. But, you know, that's kind of what this is all about, really, this show. I mean, it's called The New Gold Standard, and I think when Jim Whiting and I and Dr. Paul put our heads together and came up with the concept for this new show, you know, it was for me to come in and talk about alternative assets. Because, you know, so many people just watch the news and the talking heads on TV, and they think all there is out there are, you know, mutual funds and EFTs and stocks and bonds and, you know, things like that. You know, I mean, you've got all the commercials that are running on these shows for their different products and stuff. And, you know, there's other things out there that might make more sense, or at least some sense for a portfolio. I mean, you know, in my experience in the financial services industry, what I have come to find sometimes is It's interesting what the compensation plans are for these products and why some get spoke about more often or broadcast more often than others. And I remember my first year in the business back in Santa Clara, California, back in 1983. The firm I started with, they'd have these initial public offerings and stuff, and one of the first ones that I was involved with, the stock came out at like 32, and I sold it to everybody I knew because that's what I was told to do. It seemed like it had a lot of nice fundamentals, and a week later it was 28. And I went into my branch manager, and I was distraught. And he said, "Well, if they liked it at 32, they're going to love it at 28." And I was like, is that how we do these things? So, I started paying a lot more attention and getting a lot more education as far as some of these things go and so forth. But one of the things I wanted to kind of start with are some updates on pricing, because in the news this morning, today is January 8th, and what was it, 2 days ago we had or last night I guess it was, we had rockets being launched at bases in the Mideast that have U.S. Soldiers and so forth, and of course that's Iran and Iraq's response to President Trump's sending a drone over there to take care of their Iran's top general. And I'm sure if you're not aware of that, I don't know if you're paying attention, but that's been all over the news for the last week. And so needless to say, when you have news like that is kind of a global news story, and one that obviously kind of talks about a potential war, uncertainty, and so forth, you have different instruments behaving in different ways, and one of them was that oil started going up and gold and silver started going up. So let's look at the prices and just kind of see where they're at today versus where they were the last time we did the show, which must have been the 18th of December. And let me get to my so as of 8:02 this morning, gold was at $1575.90, and I will tell you about a week ago it was $1475. So it's jumped up, approximately $100 in the last 7-8 days because of this uncertainty in the Mideast. Silver's up to $18.40 an ounce. That too has jumped up considerably since last week. Platinum is $976. These are all by ounce, by the way. Palladium is $2,093 per ounce. And rhodium, now if you recall, if you're a viewer of the show week in, week out and so forth, rhodium is now $7,800 an ounce. Now, not too long ago, it was about $5,000. So you got a lot of things going on in these precious metals that are interesting developments. Copper, now these next prices are by the pound. Copper is $2.78 a pound. Nickel is $6.30 a pound. Aluminum is 80 cents. Zinc is $1.08. Lead's 86 cents. And uranium is actually down to $24.85 a pound. And crude oil, and this is one of those ones that jumped up, crude oil is up to $61.60 a barrel. And then so far on the Dow, at least from this source I'm looking at, there's no change. So interesting developments, to say the least, as far as prices. Now, let's talk about prices. I learned a long time ago that a lot of people are driven by fear and greed. It's kind of funny. The older I get, the more truth there are in some of the sayings that I've learned. And sometimes it's the more simple sayings. The simpler the better and stuff. And that's one of them. A lot of people make their decisions on how they're going to invest or do anything with their money based on fear and greed. And sometimes the fear is a fear of not participating in something that's going up. as compared to a fear of losing money. The greed part, there's a lot of people that, obviously are motivated by greed, and if they see something that's going up, they're gonna jump on it and stuff. I'll never forget one of my first years in the business back in the 80s. I was at a big conference, and Peter Lynch was the keynote speaker, and that may be ahead of some of your frames of reference and stuff, but Mr. Lynch used to be the manager of the Fidelity Magellan Fund. And I mean, he just had a phenomenal record as far as performance year in, year out. And during his presentation, I'll never forget, he mentioned that something like 85% of the shareholders in that fund lost money. And there was like 1,000 people in this ballroom, and everybody was like, "What? How could, it's a Fidelity Magellan Fund. How can you lose money?" And what he brought out is they've been studying this. They're all the statistics of when people got in and when people got out and stuff. And normally what it was were people were buying high and selling low. And oftentimes it was because one of the publications, back then it was Money Magazine, Smart Money, Business Week, Forbes, whoever it may be, but they'd come out with their, fund of the year. Or funds of the year, and usually that was based on prior performance, and in our business there's this disclaimer that says past performance is not indicative of future performance, and that's exactly what Mr. Lynch was referring to. Is these people, they'd see an article in Money Magazine about how Magellan was so good, and then they'd jump in, which essentially would be at the top. And then as the markets do what they do, which, it's a given. You're going to have markets go up and you're going to have markets go down, no matter if you're talking about gold and silver or stocks and bonds or corn and wheat or, whatever it is, even the dollar itself. And so, the markets would usually do their thing, and eventually the Magellan Fund would be out of favor. And, the people, that's when their emotions kind of come in again, and they're like, okay, how much can I stand? How much pain can I stand? How much, and probably right about the time they should be putting more money in so they could dollar cost average, they're deciding, okay, that's it. And they pull out at the low. So they're doing the opposite. We want to buy low and sell high, and they were buying high and selling low. So, fear and greed are big motivators for people. And so, if you think back to some of the prior shows we've had, I think one of the ways to battle fear and greed, in other words, take the emotions out of the equation, so to speak, is to have a systematic approach to what you're doing, whether it's participating in your company's 401k or Simple Plan, or whatever they've got available, if anything. But every paycheck, some of your money is going in pre-tax to that 401k, and sometimes if you have an insurance agent like myself or some of the agents I work with that have talked about some of the permanent policies that are out there, Index Universal Life, it's kind of the same thing. Every monthly premium, a little bit's going to the cash balance, and especially if it's based on an indexed, there's a likelihood that you're kind of balancing out the highs and the lows and so forth. So there's a lot of ways to have a systematic approach to where when the market's way up, you're not sitting there going, oh gosh, I'm missing the boat, what do I do? I guess I jump in now, or the opposite, the market's way down like it was in '08, and it was off 38-40%, and people are thinking, oh my gosh, I got to get my money while I can because it's going straight to the bottom. And if you've got a systematic approach, just guess what, that deposit for that month or those deposits for that year, they're getting some really good prices. And so the systematic approach is something that I really believe in, to kind of even out some of these things. Speaking of systematic approaches, some of you have heard me talk before about this Coin of the Month club that I'm in, and I'm always encouraging everybody to kind of consider. Now, the one I'm currently participating in is with 7K Metals. We've had gosh, how many? We've had 3 different speakers over the last 6 months from 7K Metals that I've interviewed, and I know that Jim Whining is taking a look at 7K Metals, and I think that it has a lot of merit. One is, it is a buyer's club. It's much like a Sam's Club or a Costco or an Amazon Prime, where you pay a membership fee. It's very nominal, and but once you're in, a lot of the things you do, especially in their dealer direct pricing, you're getting dealer prices as compared to there being a retail markup and stuff. But anyway, that's almost a discussion for another day. I got yesterday, literally, I couldn't believe it. Last night I actually dawned on me that I could talk about this today, but I got my, let me see, I guess it's my January coin, because I've got mine set up to go out on the 1st of the month, and they've got several options. They've got the one I'm on, which is each month I'm going to get a U.S. Silver Eagle MS-70, and so yesterday I got my most recent one, which is the New York coin. And then for those of you that can see this are on YouTube or Facebook Live, there's the front. You can see how it's encased in this plastic container, hermetically sealed. There's the back. And this is a U.S. State Series 2019 Eagle $1 MS-70, excuse me, New York State 5 of 50. So, the goal here is to eventually end up with one from each one of the 50 states. And I just got mine yesterday. There's a little bit of a background here on the New York card. They include New York. They say it's where dreams are made of. Most people think New York City, Empire State Building, and pizza when talking about New York, but the state is so much more. From the tallest waterfall east of the Rocky Mountains to the lush landscapes of upstate and Long Island, New York is full of rich history and variety. Congratulations on taking another step towards securing your future and legacy. You deserve it. And then there's some statistics on New York. So each coin comes with, a little blurb on that state. And then the other thing I get from the 7K organization is I get a 7K getaway card. And let me move my fingers there. If you can see that, this one's worth $125. And on the back is the instructions. Basically, use this card to save on over 400,000 hotels, resorts, and cruises worldwide. I can activate today at the 7kgetaway.com, and it talks a little bit about how to do that. There's a savings code on the back, which means that once I plug that savings code into the 7K Getaway website, that this card I can just toss or shred or something like that. But the other thing I can do with it is I could give it to somebody, before I activate it, and they could use the $125 towards hotels, resorts, and cruises and so forth, and rental cars and all that kind of stuff. And I got to tell you, my family and I, we're starting to use these. We took a trip to Tulsa back in October for Parents' Weekend. We took a trip to Dayton, in Thanksgiving to see our oldest son. And right now, my wife and I, we've got all these things coming together. It's funny because January 27th is our anniversary. Lorna's birthday is February 1st. Of course, Valentine's Day is February 14th, and then my birthday is February 28th. So we've got, like 4 things right there, that I need to be able to remember, or I get in a lot of hot water and stuff. And so I've been kind of looking at the 7K Getaway site, looking at some ideas for one of those weekends, and maybe I can try and consolidate a couple of those, like the anniversary, the birthday, and Valentine's Day. I don't know. I'm speculating here. I guess if I'm not on the air come March, you'll realize that maybe I did something wrong. So stay tuned. if they got somebody else coming in here doing the new gold standard, I'll be like, Tony must have guessed wrong. So, but hopefully not. Now, to finish that thought, what that essentially is doing is, if I'm getting a travel card for $125 and my coin, it's $95 a month to be in this coin a month club, and I use the travel card, I'm getting free silver, aren't I? I mean, you know, I get this card as part of the transaction, cash it in, I get $125 savings on something travel related, and that more than compensates me for the $95 for that month's membership. And I don't know, I kind of like it. I've got several of these now, and they're kind of building up quickly. And my point is, to finish the whole thought, is it's a systematic approach. I mean, I don't have to think about it. Every month, you know, I'm kind of now starting to look forward in that first week of getting, you know, my little FedEx envelope, because you'll notice they do send these out FedEx Express. And it was funny, yesterday when the FedEx guy rang the doorbell, I ran out there and not knowing if I had to sign for something and everything, and his little handheld computer literally went dead. So we had to stand there on the porch for a while he got it up and running and booted up and signed in and all this kind of stuff. So I got a little chit-chat with the FedEx guy and stuff. The other thing that comes with this is, like in this case, the January 2020 Vault report. And, you know, it starts out with some nice testimonials. In this issue, there's associate training. There's rank advancements for people that are moving up the ranks. There's a new promotion. There's stuff about the 7K health specifics, and of course more. And you know, that's one of the things I would mention is, you know, this company is kind of interesting. Keep in mind, I work with a lot of companies that offer gold and silver and platinum and palladium and so forth and so on and stuff. But for people who get involved with 7K, they get access to an IRA that they can put gold and silver into. And then what may be more important is they now have a 7K health plan. And you can actually go to 7khealth.com and kind of check it out. You have to be a member of 7K to take advantage of it. But I've checked out the prices, like for us, and they're very competitive. I mean, for the moment now, we're getting our health plan through my wife's employer. But just some of the highlights here. 7K Health. Here are some reasons to check out the brand new affordable health care options through 7K. No pre-existing conditions exclusions. So in other words, if you have a pre-existing condition, you can participate. It's a large network leveraging Aetna and PHCS. There's a low maximum out of pocket. No deductibles. No deductibles. Wow. HSA compatible. Now what that means is if you have a health savings account, it's compatible, and you can enroll anytime. So, you know, it's, I think one of the main reasons you might want to take a look at 7K, just to, you know, be able to have access to a health plan. I mean, I got to tell you, I think there's something like 30 million Americans that don't have health care. And I don't know if you're one of them and you've ever tried to go to an emergency room, or, you know, even go to have somebody check you out or something like that. I mean, you know, it's almost dehumanizing. It really upsets me because, you know, I've seen other people, you know, sitting there in the ER and somebody comes in and the first thing they want to know is, well, how are you going to pay for it? And I got to tell you, if you don't have insurance, if you don't have Medicare, if you don't have TRICARE, if you don't have Medicaid, if you don't have something that's going to pay that hospital, that health facility, you get treated a lot different than if you do. And you know, I mean, I could go on, and I know we don't want to use the whole show with me spouting off about, you know, health-related expenses and health-related stories and all that kind of stuff. But I just thought that might be, you know, something to bring up, is that 7K does have that available. Some of the other things that we've been doing of late, let's look real quick at Bitcoin. You know, what's amazing is the show, originally we were going to talk about alternative assets, and some of those would be, you know, the cryptos. And to be quite honest, the cryptos haven't done much in the last 6 months. You know, I mean, they've been kind of trying to feel their way and stuff like that. But guess what? you have a little action in the Mideast, and all of a sudden Bitcoin's up to $8,287.73 a piece. And that's up quite a bit from last week. In fact, in the last day, it's up 6.5%. In the last week, it's up 15.6%. In the last month, it's up 11.5%. And, you know, that's coming off lows of like, I don't know, it was as low as 6,500 a while back. So, you know, there again, there's volatility. How do you deal with volatility? You want to have a systematic approach. We'll have some shows later on that are dedicated to cryptos and whether or not they make sense, and because they're not for everybody. I got to tell you, I keep cryptos for only, you know, my more aggressive folks that can tolerate the risk involved, and you know, whatever they put into cryptos they can afford to lose, because we don't know. I mean, you know, it's still a new territory for a lot of us and stuff. I mean, you know, there's only like 21 million Bitcoin that's ever going to be issued, and that's part of the play. There is the supply and the demand, and there's a limited supply. So anytime you've got that, you know, as the demand increases, guess what? The price goes up. So Bitcoin's up to 82.85, which is interesting. The other thing I like to follow is my guys that write stories in Gold Broker, and my favorite is Egon von Greyers. And Egon has a couple of new articles. One's called "The Global Endgame Has Started, Gold Rush in the Making," and he actually is interviewed there. This is funny. The story right below this, I kid you not, this wasn't planned. The title is the run on the dollar due to panic or greed?" Weren't we just talking about that? And then let me see here. Russia, China, and Turkey push global gold. Ray Dalio. Silver financial system is rotten. Any of these articles are just great reads, and you know, I'm a realist, I think. I mean, when I read someone who's all the way over here, as far as, you know, the sky is falling and this is what you got to do, you know, I try to find someone over here that's, you know, just a little bit more on the positive side. You know, in the stock and bond world, there's a guy named Jeremy Siegel, you know, who's a professor with all kinds of degrees and awards and so forth, and he's got to be probably the biggest bull out there as far as the markets and so forth. And so oftentimes that's what I'll do is I'll read some of these guys, and then I'll go out and I'll find what Jeremy Siegel's saying, or, you know, the Warren Buffetts, you know, people like that and stuff. What's interesting is more and more of late, these folks are starting to, you know, say, you know, I'm not really doing anything, you know. In fact, I'm adding to my Ray Dalio. We've had articles of his on the show before. Ray Dalio is, you know, talking about, you know, what he's doing with his hedge fund, which is the largest in the world, and you know, he's real happy with adding gold and silver to his portfolio. And speaking of gold and silver, I just saw out of the corner of my eye the golden microphone. Holy cow! What do you got for us?
Thank you, Tony. I'm glad you recognized that. This is Matt, everybody, producer here at Axe Television Network. Today's show is brought to you by naturalsolutionstore.bz. You can also scan the little QR code, and it'll take you right to it. If you're using your cell phone, you can do it right on the screen even. Just take a little picture. Be like this right here. See? Look. Just snap a photo of it, boom, and it'll take you right there. Today's product that I am going to be talking about is a liver cleanse. Now, a healthy liver is an essential part of maintaining optimum health. That being said, my question is, do you feel lethargic? Do you feel bloated? Do you have weight gain? Do you smoke or regularly consume alcohol? Well, you may need a liver support supplement. Easy and gentle, only 2 capsules per day. No handful of horse pills like some of the other brands out there. You should gradually feel an increase in energy, better overall health, and improved mental clarity. Because if if it's one thing people need more, is improved mental clarity, especially throughout the week. So, rapidly repair, protect, and detoxify. Now, regular exposure to environmental toxins such as cigarette smoke, alcohol, poor diet, medications, and working in polluted spaces can overwork your liver. Common symptoms of an overworked liver include lethargy, feeling bloated, weight gain, low immunity, like if you get sick a lot, insomnia, emotional outbursts, and digestive upset. Liver Cleanse will help to bring your liver back into balance by providing effective cleansing and aids to restore nutrients that are depleted. So if any of this applies to you, or even if it doesn't, go online anyways. Check out all the other stuff that we have on naturalsolutionstore.bz. Back to you, Tony.
Thanks, Matt. Great segue there, or segment, pardon me. You know, what I thought I would do on the way over here this morning is two other things before we run out of time. It always amazes me to get on this show and, you know, it's an hour long, give or take a few minutes, and how fast an hour goes. It's nothing like it was when I was in grade school. It seemed like to be an eternity back then and stuff. But one thing I wanted to mention is, you know, Monday, I guess it was, I sent out a blast email to all my clients and people that I, you know, deal with on the gold and silver opportunities and stuff. And I was acknowledging, obviously, this situation in the Mideast, but I was also talking about the best strategy for a non-qualified account. And the best strategy for a non-qualified account would be in pre-1933 coins. And so I threw this into the email and so forth, but they have the advantage of, over other gold products, of privacy, performance, and liquidity. And that's mainly because they aren't making them anymore. And the reason I mention this on this particular broadcast is that I do have a number of people that are looking at making some very sizable investments, and you know, I don't know how big they're going to be, but they may, you know, take up a vast quantity of what's out there and stuff. What I mean by the liquidity and the performance and stuff, they're not making them anymore, so they've got a nice premium over other gold options. And because of the way they're classified, they're a semi-numismatic, and they are classified basically the same as cash. And the neat thing about that, for those of you that may be interested, is it allows you to keep your privacy. In other words, once you put some money into these pre-33 gold or silver coins, you don't have to report anything you do with them. In other words, let's say you down the road sell them and you make a profit. It's not necessary to fill out a 1099 form. Now, I mean, you're always welcome to, and so forth, but as far as the current rules and regulations and the revenue code and so forth, that is not necessary. So that's one of the reasons why a lot of folks like these pre-33 coins, is just because they do have a hefty premium. They will benefit the most when gold goes up, and they do maintain their privacy. And then last but not least is the liquidity part of it, which is because of the limited supply, the day you decide you want to get out of them, most of the people that, you know, offer them, like our friend Ryan Long over there at National Gold Consultants, he wants the right or the privilege or the option to buy them back because he wants to, you know, keep his inventory and so forth. So it's got some built-in liquidity, and I just find them to be a neat instrument to be aware of. That's the gist of the email I sent out and so forth. Let me ask you this. Are you working harder for more money to cover the basics? I know Matt and I have been talking about eventually getting me set up to where I can have videos run and or PowerPoints. So what I'm doing now is I'm looking at my computer screen at a PowerPoint. I'm going to use it as kind of my crutch to go through a little bit of a presentation here. But Matt, is that something we can do somewhere down the road?
Yeah, you got to It's not a matter if we can do it, it's a matter of figuring out how.
Huh. Okay.
As soon as I figure out how, we'll get it started, because we'll have to drop down to just one computer.
Oh,
We're talking about possibly switching to just YouTube and then sharing our YouTube videos on Facebook. That way we have one computer, two cameras, and we'll be able to use, we'll get to it.
okay, no worries. So,
Thank you for your patience.
oh, hey, and, just I would love to show the visuals that go along with some of these things, but it's not just you. There's higher cost and added financial pressures on families today are causing fear, uncertainty, and doubt on a large scale. I know we just got through the holidays, and I know from experience, boy, there's nothing worse than going through the holidays and, just not having what's needed to, take care of things, especially if you got little ones, and you got to be frugal with the gifts and all that kind of stuff. So as of now, this is one of those things I can't believe, but it's true. As of May of 17, 44% of Americans said they could not cover a $400 emergency expense and would rely on credit cards, selling something, or borrowing the money if such an event arose. Now think about that. 44% of Americans. There's 238 million of us. So if you do the math, 44% is, well, it's over 100 million. So that's a lot of people that if they had a $400 emergency expense, they'd have to rely on a credit card or selling something or borrowing the money. And, the key question is what's happening with your money? It's all in the numbers. If we look back to 1913, when the Federal Reserve was first created, a dollar was a dollar. Partly because back then dollars were backed up by gold and silver. And, if you go fast forward to 1933, FDR gave his executive order that makes it illegal to hold gold coin, bullion, or certificates. That was kind of an interesting time in our history. And then 1944, Bretton Woods established the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. Now keep in mind, 1944 was just as World War II was winding down, and we had been victorious in both theaters, the Pacific and Europe. 1971. Now, I know this date pretty well. It's August 15th, 1971. President Nixon closes the gold window. It ends Bretton Woods Agreement and begins the modern-day flat currency systems. So what does that mean? Well, gold back then was about $35 an ounce, and a dollar was backed up by gold. And the reason he did this is there were a few countries that were getting dollars in different business transactions and things like this, and then they were going to the Treasury and cashing them in for gold. And it was starting to deplete our gold reserves as a country. So, to basically save those reserves, that's what he did. Now, meanwhile, what's happening? Well, if you look at it today, the dollar from 1913 to today has lost about 95% of its purchasing value. For example, price increases, and this is from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. Food at home is up 43%. This is just from 2000 to 2018. Food out, if you eat out, 59%. Heat sources. We all kind of need some heat, especially this time of year. Heat's up 99%. Car insurance, 97%. Water and sewers up 133%. College tuition, oh my gosh. We've got 4 boys and 3 are, well, one's out of college, 2 are college age, and that's up 151%. I'm probably preaching to the choir there as far as some of the expenses. And then medical care, we were just talking about the health care. Medical care is up 97%. Folks, those are all things that we kind of need. Food, heat, insurance, water and sewer, college, educating our kids, and medical care. And so if you mind, if we show you the case for sound money, and these folks that put this together kind of chuckle. They say, don't worry, it's just a fancy name for gold and silver. But gold and silver is one of the secrets the wealthy have used for ages to amass and protect their wealth. In fact, our friend Ryan Long has a lot of his marketing material titled that gold and silver is wealth insurance. In fact, governments and financial institutions know and use the secret. They are the largest holders of gold in the world today, and there's a reason why. And these are a couple analogies that I really like. What could you buy today with the same silver from 1965? Now, in 1965, 1 ounce of silver was about $1, okay? And you could have got a gallon of milk. So if you come up to 2019 and you went in to buy a gallon of milk, you couldn't get one, could you, with $1? But if you had an ounce of silver still, and remember, in 65, the silver and the dollar were both $1, and today the dollar is still $1, but the silver is high enough. In fact, you know, what we say earlier, the spot price was $18.80 or something today. But with an ounce of silver, you could get 5.1 gallons of milk. So that's an increase in the buying power for silver about 410%. Here's another one. What about a movie ticket? I know a lot of us like to go to the Alamo and the other theaters around town and so forth. Well, back in 1965, a $1 bill could have bought you a movie ticket, same as a 1 ounce of silver. Today, if you went to buy a movie ticket for $1, you wouldn't get very far, would you? I mean, we used to have the Palace Theater in town, and at least those tickets were $2 and $3 there. But the Palace is no longer in town. So here again, if you had 1 ounce of silver, you could probably get almost 2 tickets. You know, I mean, that'd be about $18, almost $19. And I think most tickets over there at the Alamo are about $10 a piece or something like that. So you have an increase in the buying power of silver there of 80%, a decrease of 95% of the purchasing power of your dollar. So here's the one I like. This is one of my favorite ones real quick here, for a lot of reasons. One, it deals with cars, and I'm kind of a car guy. In fact, we ended up getting our 18-year-old a let over the holidays so he can get back and forth to Tulsa. But in 1965, some of you are old enough to remember this, some not, but let me share this with you. In 1965, Lee Iacocca and Ford came out with the original pony car, which was the Ford Mustang. And it was about $2,500. So in 1965, if you had 25 $100 bills and 2,500 ounces of silver, you could have bought a Ford Mustang. Okay, so let's fast forward to this year. If you had those same 2,500 $1 bills and you went into a Ford dealership and wanted to buy a new Ford Mustang, could you do it? I don't think so. I don't think 2,500 would make the down payment. I don't know, what on that Mustang you could get. Maybe the tires and wheels, maybe. But if you had 2,500 ounces of silver today, you'd have almost, $50,000, give or take. You'd have enough to buy possibly 2, if they were the 6 cylinders and they didn't have every feature on there and all that kind of stuff. I mean, you could definitely buy 1 and still have some silver left over. So it just kind of depends on, how many vehicles you need and so forth. But I love that analogy because, it makes it really clear. In 65, the dollar and the silver, you could have bought a Mustang for 2,500 of them. Today, $2,500 isn't going to buy you much, but 2,500 ounces of silver, you could still buy a brand new Mustang. And, Mustangs run, depending on all the features, anywhere from probably, probably 22,000 up to 40,000 or something. I haven't priced them here in the last couple of weeks, but I just think that's a neat analogy. Here's another one. Let's talk about gold and real estate. In 65, if you had $10,000 and you went to buy a house, now the house I'm talking about is probably like a 3-bedroom, 2-bath ranch house, probably 1,900 square feet. I mean, we're not talking, some, huge mansion or anything, but we're talking about a nice house in middle America. Your $10,000 would have bought one back in 65. Today, and this is based on housing inflation rate, that house would be worth $85,803. So, that's not bad. I mean, if you took care of it, you have a nice roof over your head, and If you wanted to sell it, you'd get about 8 times your money and so forth. Now, keep in mind, from 65 to 2019, that's, what is that? That's 54 years. Gold, on the other hand, if you had in 65 put your $10,000 into gold, you would have bought 281 ounces at $35.50. And today, those 281 ounces would be worth $421,781. Actually, today I think that's a little bit more due to this little bump here lately. Let me just do that real quick if I can. I'll just get the calculator going here. You got to figure, what, 281 times, what was it, 1585, 1585. So $445,385. So, you know, granted, in 65, you had a choice. Do I want to put my 10 grand in a house, or do I want to put it in gold? But if, based on which one you did, you would now have either a house worth $85,000, or you'd have 281 ounces of gold. That's $445,000. So, just, I think, you know, interesting things to think about. After seeing those stats, does your financial future seem more challenging? You know, but why aren't normal, everyday financial professionals telling you about it? Well, a lot of times the truth is they don't want you to know. Remember, I talked about that at the very early part of this show. They want you to think it's not important to know the secret of sound money. But we believe in you and want to guide you in your journey to amassing and protecting true wealth for your family and your legacy, because you deserve it. And there's some marketing things there from the founders of, this is from 7K and so forth. But here's one of the things that I want to get into, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here. But a big part of this is trying to keep people from making the $1.2 million mistake. So, you know, let's get into, you know, the 5 reasons why gold and silver make a lot of sense. Let's forget about the Mideast. Let's forget about, you know, some of these other things that are going on in the news today. I like to say that that's just noise. You know, that's stuff you hear, and then you get emotional and you do fear and greed type transactions, and sometimes those aren't the best. A lot of times they're not the best. But here's 5 reasons for gold and silver. One is it's a hedge against poor government decisions and potential economic collapse. You know, we've talked about that a lot in prior shows. You know, right now they're just printing money. You know, I saw an article 2 days ago where the Fed is buying another $49 billion worth of bonds. Well, all that's doing is it's pushing money into the system, you know, printing money essentially that is not backed by anything. That is a fiat currency. And ever since Nixon in '71 took us off the gold standard, that's what the dollar has been, just like every other currency in the world. It's a fiat currency. And if you got into the definition of a fiat currency, you'd find that basically the only reason it's something we can use to buy things is because our government tells us that it is. There's nothing backing it up. So it's a hedge against poor government decisions. Wealth accumulation. You know, I'm gone through a couple examples here just a moment ago with the real estate and the Mustang. Wealth protection. You know, the neat thing about gold and silver is when most of the other markets out there go down, like in '08, you know, when the S&P 500 went down 38%, gold was up 5.4%. So, you know, it wasn't exactly a match, but, you know, for that person who had 10% of their portfolio in gold, they had a little bit of a buffer on the part of their portfolio that was down 38%. Portfolio diversification, you know, that might get a little bit into conversations that are out there that might be more than you want to know. But, you know, there's a lot of arguments on not having all your eggs in one basket. And gold and silver, platinum, palladium, you know, these types of alternative assets would be a way to do that. And then, last but not least, if you're going to buy your gold and silver in coins, coin collecting. And I know coin collecting sounds like oh, I did that when I was a kid. I mean, oh, I did, and I've got, bags of coins and stuff like this. And, some I think are valuable and some aren't and stuff. But I will tell you this, what we're trying to do is make sure that people don't make the $1.2 million mistake. And what that is, you're going to laugh as you hear this, but it's a fact. I actually checked the prices out. It's amazing. The $1.2 million mistake is back in 1986 when they started offering these silver eagles. We're just going to talk silver eagles. We won't even talk gold eagles. But if in 1986, when they first started offering these, if every month you bought one, and I'm talking about buying them at the price that I mentioned earlier, the $95 a month, which is, the way that particular systematic program works. But if you had been buying a coin every month since 1986, right now you'd have approximately 400 coins, give or take one or two. I mean, I haven't done the math here this morning, but it'd be a sizable collection. You probably would have put in about $40,000 to $50,000 over that time frame, systematically each month. And what would that portfolio of 400 coins be worth? Well, it'd probably be someplace between 1.2 and 1.6 million. What? Coins? Silver dollars? Well, here's the interesting thing. The reason why the systematic approach works is you never know which year is going to appreciate the most. For example, your 2012 MS-70s, so just like these, just 7 years older, they're now worth $150 a piece. It's not bad. The 1996 ones are worth $6,000 a piece. Now think about that. If you had just bought 12 coins and they were the 12 from 96 and you spent, let's say, $95 a month, you put in 12, let's call it $1,200, and right now that'd be worth $72,000. Because for some reason the 96 ones are way, way more valuable than, the 12s. Now here's the one that really gets me. The 2019 ones are now worth, excuse me, God, I misspoke there. Boy, people will be jumping off everything. The 1999 ones, the 1999, let me make sure I clarify that. MS-70s are now worth over $19,000 a piece. And I've gone to the internet, I've checked this all out because I'm a skeptic just like a lot of folks. And sure enough, those, whatever reason, those 1999 ones, and you wouldn't have known that, unless you were just doing the systematic approach month in, month out. And then when you look back over a 50-year time frame or a 40-year time frame, whatever it turns out to be, you were just savvy enough. You were just smart enough. Who knows, maybe you were lucky enough to have those coins in your portfolio. I tell you what, we've kind of reached the end of today's show. Hopefully this first show of 2020 has been informative, educational. If you ever need to reach me, you can at 417-755-0700. You can always email me at tony@thegoldaffiliate.com. And I know that Mr. Matt is giving me the look that says we've got how much time left?
30 seconds.
30 seconds. So let me just take those 30 seconds to thank Jim and Pam Whining and Dr. Paul for letting me come back this year with this version of the New Gold Standard. If you have a chance to support the Axe Ministry, please do so. They have some wonderful ministries inside Axe Ministry, like, for example, the one that's ran by Matt's dad that is for veterans. And, if you can do so, that would be much appreciated. And other than that, have a wonderful rest of your week. We'll look forward to seeing you next week on the New Gold Standard.